Thank you for joining us today. Oh my goodness, I get to say the word vaccinations with a very positive, encouraging message behind it. This is not political. This is about one of the most important people in our scientific history, Edward Jenner, who invented the vaccination. And I've got a wonderful author here today. Dr. Brink is here to talk about her book, During the Pandemic with Edward Jenner. Welcome, Dr. Brink.
Thank you for having me, Suzanne. I'm so flattered that you have me on your show, and I love my book, so I can't wait to share it with your audience.
Well, we are glad that you're here. You are represented by Book Launch International, and you have such an important, fun message. And I'm not surprised to have learned that this all kind of started with a background as a science teacher.
I'm a longtime science teacher. I've only taught science. I never taught anything else. I taught for 49 years.
Wow.
And now, since I'm retired, I'm writing. And the beautiful thing about my stories is I take a famous scientist and I weave a story that your listeners will enjoy because I put a fictional character with our scientist who builds the story together. They build the science together.
So, who is Edward Jenner?
All right, Suzanne, uh, 200 years ago, this is unbelievable. 200 years ago, we were in a worldwide pandemic of smallpox. And if you go to any statistics, it was terrible and deadly. And countries were whole kingdoms, all the Orient and all of Africa were variolating. Variolating, Suzanne, is they scratch the skin and they introduce smallpox pus into the wound. So hopefully the people will develop antibodies. Of course, there's other things in that pus because guess what? Anyway, so Edward Jenner was a English MD, medical doctor, and he thought there has to be a better way. It's such a tragic story of how many people were dying. And in Europe and England, they were saying, no, we're not going to variolate. Variolate was introducing smallpox into the body. So Edward Jenner, darling, he thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a safer mechanism. And he introduced cowpox under the skin. And he changed the name, everything. He called it vaccinate. So no longer, after Edward Jenner, nobody variolated. And Suzanne, here's a really wonderful, tiny little piece of the story. England at that time was sending out exploration ships. As you know, I wrote the book about Charles Darwin. They sent out these exploration ships. They carried the vaccine on the ships and they vaccinated people worldwide.
Wow. Almost by
Now,
changing the marketing of it. It was the same type of thing, but it was the way it was changing the way the world thought about it.
honey, uh, the in 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated from the world. It took 200 years,
Wow.
but we have not had a case of smallpox since 1980. So it took 200 years. We're in a pandemic now. I think your readers will enjoy my story. It's fiction because I introduce a fictional character and my fictional character, Robert and Edward Jenner, build a relationship. And now we have smallpox eradicated.
So, Dr. Tempering, what is your goal of the book? Is it just to introduce people to Edward Jenner, or is it to change the way that they're thinking about vaccinations? What do you hope people think or feel or do after they read your book?
Suzanne, mostly I want them to be entertained. We want people to read. I'm like, are people reading out there? Hello, but I know, right?
I
You and
know.
I are, but I'm wondering, like that third grader, fifth grader,
Sure.
high school kid, are they actually reading? So I want people to read. But if they read my stories, my 4 novels, which uh, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Rachel Carson and now Edward Jenner. I want them to learn about the science and these unbelievable girl. It's just so sweet story. And he saved the world from smallpox.
Wow. Well, you talk about pandemics. I mean, it's so true. It inflicts unspeakable harm on people. This man saved millions of lives.
Yes, and he opened a clinic, a free clinic in Gloucestershire, England, and people came from all over England to be vaccinated. Well, he was very elating for a long time, and then he started vaccinating, and he and my character, my fictional character, they went to London, they went all over England vaccinating people. And the other thing, Suzanne, they kept records. Every
Mm.
single person who was variolated and every single person who was vaccinated has been recorded in one of his medical books.
Were you ever teacher of the year? Because you are, I just lean into what you're saying. You just love science so much. It becomes part of who you're talking to.
I'm very passionate about science. And now I'm very passionate about. Here's a sweet thing for your listeners. My very first classroom, I drew a picture. I drew this picture of Edward Jenner, very first classroom 49 years ago, and hung his picture in my classroom.
Oh my goodness. That's what he's meant. This was long before COVID. I mean,
Well,
you've
he's
been a
been
fan of
famous
his for
for
years.
smallpox
Yeah.
long before COVID. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mhm.
very cool. What do you see coming up after this? I mean, clearly you're not just going to stop with these 4 books.
Well, Suzanne, thank you for asking. I write epic poems, and they're all published. I have 5 epic poems on my website, and I have short stories compiled. I have children's books. Oh my gosh, I have children's books that are sweet and people can have fun, and reading can be enjoyable for the whole family. Yes.
What is the reading age of the 4? Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Rachel Carson, Edward
I
Jenner.
call them young adult
Okay.
novels. So he's historic and the
Mhm.
science is real. It's been recorded. But then I add an element of fiction. So I call them young adult novels. So that would be junior high, high school.
Mhm. I love it. It makes me feel like, what's a little piece of the world that I can make a difference in when I see these, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, they didn't know that they were gonna change the world. They just had their little bit of knowledge and changed the world, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And they had passion.
Yeah.
What the I did capture some of the passion of Edward Jenner because he would not stop. He was ridiculed. He was like, "No, we're not going to do that." Oh, and he wouldn't stop. And now
Yeah.
his vaccines went on every single exploration voyage worldwide, and it took 200 years, but thanks to Edward Jenner, we have vaccines today for your infant, for your children, for yourself, because of
Mhm.
Edward Jenner.
That is a wonderful tribute, a wonderful story, and of course, we know that you are with Book Launch International, but how can people get a hold of you or get a hold of your books? What's the best website and contact?
Thank you so much. My website is so cute. It's www.author.barbara10brink.com.
Okay. Well,
Author.barbara10brink.com.
I have a feeling that we're gonna be talking again. I can't wait to dive in and find out more about your books, specifically this one. It's called During the Pandemic with Edward Jenner. And Dr.
So
Tenbrink,
sweet.
thank you so much for being part of the show. We're so excited, and I do look forward to speaking with you again sometime.
Thank you, Suzanne. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for having me on your show. Audience, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Thank you.
Bless you. Bye-bye.